Alana Martinez stood at the observation deck of the diplomatic station, watching the blue and green marble of Earth rotate slowly below. She had been away from home for 6 months this time, the longest stretch yet. The view never got old, but the ache in her chest did seem to grow stronger each time she looked down at her birth planet. Ambassador Martinez, your transport to Cathari Prime is ready for departure, came the voice of her assistant, Lieutenant Ben Carter, through the comm system. Elena sighed and turned away from the viewport. Another diplomatic mission, another chance to keep the peace between humans and the galaxy's more aggressive species. She had been doing this job for 12 years now, and each year seemed to bring new challenges. The Cathari Dominion was the latest, and perhaps the most difficult. The Cathari were an ancient race of insect-like beings who had controlled a large section of the galaxy for over 2,000 years. They were proud, aggressive, and viewed most other species as inferior. When humans had joined the Galactic Council 15 years ago, the Cathari had been the loudest voices opposing Earth's membership. Elena walked through the corridors of the station toward the docking bay. Other diplomats and station personnel nodded respectfully as she passed. She had earned quite a reputation over the years. They called her the peacemaker behind her back, though Elena never felt particularly peaceful when dealing with species that seemed to only understand strength. The shuttle that would take her to Cathari Prime was small, but well equipped for the 3-day journey. Elena settled into her seat and opened her tablet to review the files on the current trade dispute. The Cathari had been blocking human cargo ships from entering their space, claiming that human goods were contaminated with dangerous bacteria. Earth scientists had proven this was false, but the Cathari refused to lift the blockade. Captain Lisa Wong, the shuttle pilot, sealed the hatch and began the pre-flight sequence. Ready for departure, Ambassador. Should be a smooth flight. To Cathari space. Elena nodded and returned to her reading. The truth was that the trade dispute was just an excuse. The real problem was that the Cathari couldn't accept humanity's rapid rise in galactic politics. In just 15 years, humans had gone from unknown primitives to respected members of the Galactic Council. They had established colonies on 47 worlds, built a powerful fleet of ships, and formed alliances with 12 other species. The Cathari saw this as a threat to their own power and influence. War Prime Zeekth, their leader, had made several public statements about the need to put humans in their proper place. These statements worried many council members, but so far the Cathari had limited themselves to economic warfare and diplomatic pressure. During the flight, Elena reviewed everything she knew about Cathari psychology. They respected strength above all else, but they also had a complex system of honor that could be used to find peaceful solutions. The key was to show respect for their history while making it clear that humans would not be pushed around. She also thought about her sister Kate, who commanded one of Earth's most powerful battle fleets. Kate had always been the warrior of the family, while Elena chose diplomacy. They often disagreed about the best way to handle aggressive alien species, but Elena knew her sister would support whatever decision she made. The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Cathari territory. Almost immediately, 3 Cathari patrol ships surrounded them. The ships were sleek and dangerous-looking, with weapon ports that glowed with barely contained energy. "Human vessel, state your business in Dominion space," came a harsh voice. Over the communications system, Captain Wong responded calmly. "This is Diplomatic Shuttle Terra 7 carrying Ambassador Elena Martinez for scheduled talks with the War Council." There was a long pause before the Cathari responded. "You will follow our escort to Cathari Prime. Any deviation from the prescribed course will be considered an act of war." Elena smiled grimly. The Cathari loved their dramatic threats, but they wouldn't actually attack a diplomatic vessel. That would bring the wrath of the entire Galactic Council down on them. And even the proud Cathari weren't quite ready for that level of conflict. The journey to Cathari Prime took 6 hours under escort. Elena used the time to practice her Cathari language skills and review the proposals she planned to present. The key was to offer the Cathari something they wanted while protecting human interests. It was like a complex dance where one wrong step could lead to war. Cathari Prime was an impressive sight. The planet was covered in massive hive cities that stretched for hundreds of miles. Each city was a work of art, with flowing organic curves that seemed to grow from the planet's surface rather than being built upon it. The Cathari might be aggressive, but they were also master architects. The shuttle landed at the Diplomatic Complex, a smaller structure that still dwarfed most human buildings. Elena gathered her materials and prepared to meet with beings who saw her species as upstart children, who had grown too big for their place in the galaxy. War Prime Zeke H was waiting in the reception hall with his full council. The Cathari leader stood nearly 8 feet tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the artificial lights. His compound eyes fixed on Elena as she approached, and she could feel the weight of his hostility. "Ambassador Martinez," Zeke said in heavily accented English, "you come to our world to defend the actions of your contaminated merchants." Elena bowed slightly, showing respect without submission. "War Prime Zeke, I come to find a solution that benefits both our peoples. The galaxy is large enough for all of us to prosper." The talks lasted for 3 days. Elena presented scientific evidence that human goods posed no contamination risk. She offered to allow Cathari inspectors to examine human cargo ships. She even suggested joint research projects that could benefit both species. But Zeke H and his council remained unmoved. They wanted humans to acknowledge Cathari superiority and accept secondary status in their section of the galaxy. Elena couldn't agree to terms that would effectively make human colonies into Cathari vassals. On the final day of negotiations, Elena made one last attempt at compromise. "War Prime, our species may be young, but we're not going anywhere. We can be neighbors and trading partners, or we can be enemies. The choice is yours." Zeke's mandibles clicked in. What Elena had learned was the Cathari equivalent of laughter. Humans believe they have earned equality through luck and the charity of older species. You will learn that the galaxy has rules, and those rules are not written by children. Elena knew the talks had failed. She gathered her materials and prepared to return to her shuttle. As she walked through the corridors of the diplomatic complex, she felt eyes watching her from every shadow. The Cathari guards seemed more tense than usual, and Elena began to worry that she might not make it off the planet safely. Captain Wang was waiting at the shuttle, her hand resting casually on her sidearm. "How did it go, Ambassador?" "Not well," Elena replied. "Let's get out of here before they change their minds about letting us leave." The shuttle lifted off without incident and began the journey back to human space. Elena settled into her seat and began composing her report to President Sullivan. She would have to recommend that Earth prepare for increased Cathari aggression. The diplomatic approach had failed, and Elena feared that harder times were coming. She never saw the small device that had been attached to the shuttle's engine during their stay on Cathari Prime. The device was designed to look like a normal component malfunction, something that would appear to be an accident rather than sabotage. 12 hours into the return journey, the device activated. The explosion lit up the darkness of space like a dying star. Admiral Kate Morrison watched the security footage for the 10th time, her jaw clenched so tight it hurt. The shuttle carrying her sister Elena had simply vanished in a ball of fire and debris. One moment it was there, the next it was scattered atoms floating in the void. The investigation team found traces of a power core overload. reported Commander Mike Johnson, Kate's intelligence officer. The Kethari claim it was a technical malfunction caused by incompatible fuel mixtures. Kate turned away from the screen. And President Sullivan believes them? The president wants to maintain diplomatic relations. He says one life, even Ambassador Martinez's life, isn't worth a galactic war. Kate felt rage burning in her chest, but she kept her voice level. Elena was worth 100 of those insect bastards. She was worth more than all their precious treaties combined. 3 years passed like a slow wound that never healed. Kate threw herself into her work, commanding the Terran Defense Fleet with ruthless efficiency. She modernized human ships, trained new crews, and prepared for the war she knew was coming. Because Kate understood something that President Sullivan and his advisors refused to see. The Kethari weren't interested in peace. They were testing human resolve, seeing how far they could push before Earth pushed back. Dr. Alex Chun had replaced Elena as Earth's primary diplomat. Alex was smart and dedicated, but he lacked Elena's natural gift for reading alien psychology. Where Elena could sense hidden meanings and unspoken threats, Alex took words at face value. Kate liked him well enough, but she worried that his trusting nature would get him killed. The warning signs were everywhere for those who knew how to look. Kethari ships began appearing in systems near human colonies, claiming to be on peaceful exploration missions. Their diplomats made increasingly aggressive demands in council meetings. They pushed for new regulations that would limit human expansion and trade rights. Alex worked overtime, trying to satisfy their demands. He renegotiated shipping agreements, accepted new inspection protocols, and even agreed to limit human settlements in disputed border regions. Each concession only made the Kethari bolder in their next request. Kate watched all this from her flagship, the U's Defiance, as she patrolled the outer colonies. She received regular intelligence reports about Kethari military buildups and aggressive speeches by War Prime Zeke H. The insect leader had been making public statements about the need to correct the mistakes of allowing humans into the galactic community. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command, announced Lieutenant Sarah Davis from the communications station. Kate straightened in her command chair. Priority transmissions usually meant bad news. Put it through to my ready room. The message was from President Sullivan himself, his face grave on the holographic display. Admiral Morrison, I'm sorry to inform you that Dr. Alex Chun was found dead in his quarters on Vega Station this morning. The initial investigation suggests he was poisoned with a Kethari nerve toxin. Kate felt the familiar rage building again, but this time it was colder and more controlled. Was it officially a murder this time, or are we calling it another accident? The Kethari aren't even denying involvement. War Prime Zeke H made a public statement claiming that humans who interfere with Dominion destiny will face consequences. The Galactic Council has issued a formal condemnation, but they won't take any real action. Kate stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. What are your orders, Mr. President? There was a long pause before Sullivan responded. Return to Earth immediately. We need to discuss how humanity will respond to this provocation. The journey back to Earth took 6 days, and Kate spent every hour of it thinking about Elena and Alex. 2 good people were dead because the Kethari saw humans as weak. 2 dedicated diplomats had been murdered because Earth's government preferred peaceful words to decisive action. When Kate arrived at the presidential palace, she found a very different Jack Sullivan than the one she had left behind. The president looked older, harder, and there was something dangerous in his eyes that hadn't been there before. They think we're soft, Sullivan said without preamble. The Kethari believe that humans are too civilized to fight back. They see our restraint as weakness and our diplomacy as cowardice. Kate nodded. Elena understood that. She warned us 3 years ago that the Cathari only respect strength. I should have listened to her. I should have listened to you. Sullivan walked to the window overlooking the capital city. But I believed that peace was worth any price, even the lives of our best people. And now? Sullivan turned back to face her, and Kate saw something she had never seen before in the president's expression. It was the look of a predator that had finally decided to hunt. Now I understand that some prices are too high to pay. The Cathari want to see what humans are really like when we stop being diplomatic. They're about to find out. The emergency session of Congress was called for the next day. Kate sat in the gallery and watched as President Sullivan addressed the assembled representatives. His speech was broadcast across every human world and to every human ship in space. My fellow citizens, Sullivan began, his voice calm but carrying an edge that made even experienced politicians sit up straighter. 3 years ago, we lost Ambassador Elena Martinez in what appeared to be a technical accident. We chose to accept that explanation in the interest of maintaining galactic peace. The chamber was completely silent as Sullivan continued. Yesterday, we lost Dr. Alex Chun to an assassin's poison. This time, the Cathari aren't even pretending it was an accident. War Prime Zeke H has publicly claimed responsibility and threatened further violence against any human who opposes their will. Kate could see the anger building in the faces around her. The representatives were finally understanding what she had known for years. The Cathari saw human restraint as an invitation to commit murder. We gave them one, Sullivan said, his voice rising slightly. We let them kill our finest diplomat and called it an accident. We chose peace over justice, diplomacy over vengeance. We let them murder Elena Martinez and pretended to believe their lies. He paused, looking directly into the cameras that were broadcasting his words across human space. Dr. Chun's death makes one thing perfectly clear. The Cathari see our restraint as weakness. They believe humans are too civilized to defend ourselves. Today, we prove them wrong. The chamber erupted in applause, but Sullivan raised his hand for silence. I am authorizing the formation of a Special Operations Command under Admiral Kate Morrison. Our response will be measured, precise, and devastating. The Cathari want to know what humans are capable of when we stop being diplomatic. They're about to learn. Kate felt a cold satisfaction as she listened to the president outline the new military structure. She would have direct command of all special forces, intelligence operations, and strategic planning. General Lisa Parker would handle ground forces, while Admiral Tom Bradley would coordinate fleet movements. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Humanity would not declare war officially. That would give the Galactic Council an excuse to intervene and force a negotiated settlement. Instead, they would demonstrate what happened when you pushed humans beyond their breaking point. After the congressional session, Kate met with President Sullivan in his private office. The president poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to her. I want you to understand something, Kate. What we're about to do will change how the galaxy sees humanity forever. We won't be the peaceful, reasonable species anymore. We'll be something much more dangerous. Kate raised her glass. Good. Alana and Alex died because we were too reasonable. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned that humans can be unreasonable. When necessary, Sullivan nodded and they drank in silence. Outside the window, the lights of the capital city sparkled in the darkness. Soon, Kate knew, other lights would be going out across Cathari space. The Dominion had made a fatal mistake in assuming that human civilization meant human weakness. War Prime Zeke H was about to discover just how wrong he had been. The Terran War Council met in the deepest levels of Earth Command, far below the surface where even the most advanced sensors could not penetrate. Admiral Kate Morrison sat at the head of the table, studying the faces of the men and women who would help her plan humanity's response to Cathari aggression. General Lisa Parker commanded the Terran Marine Corps. She was a veteran of the Suntorai Rebellion and had fought in more ground battles than anyone else in the room. Her scarred face and cybernetic left arm were reminders of battles where diplomacy had failed and only force could solve the problem. Colonel Maria Santos led the Special Operations Division. Her teams could infiltrate any target, anywhere in the galaxy, without leaving a trace. She had spent the last 3 years training her soldiers for exactly this kind of mission. Intelligence. Director Ryan Walsh controlled the largest spy network in human space. His agents operated on dozens of worlds, gathering information and preparing for the day when Earth would need to strike back at its enemies. Commander Steve Johnson ran the engineering corps. His teams could build anything or destroy anything, often using the same set of tools. He had already begun working on special projects that would give humanity advantages the Cathari would never expect. Dr. Carol White headed the Cyber Warfare Division. Her computer specialists could penetrate any alien network and turn their own technology against them. She had been studying Cathari systems for years, waiting for the chance to use her knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate began, President Sullivan has given us a simple mission. We are going to show the Cathari what happens when you murder human diplomats. We will do this without officially declaring war and without giving the Galactic Council an excuse to interfere. She activated the holographic display in the center of the table. A three-dimensional map of Cathari space appeared, showing their major worlds, military bases, and shipping routes. The Cathari believe they understand human psychology. They think we are soft, weak, and too civilized to fight back properly. War Prime Zeke H has spent 3 years testing our patience, culminating in the murder of Dr. Chun. He expects us to file protests with the Galactic Council and make angry speeches. Kate smiled coldly. Instead, we are going to dismantle his entire civilization piece by piece. When we are finished, the Cathari Dominion will no longer exist as a military or political power. General Parker leaned forward. What are our rules of engagement? Are we targeting military installations only, or do we include civilian infrastructure? We avoid civilian casualties whenever possible, Kate replied. But civilian infrastructure that supports their military capabilities is fair game. Power plants, communication networks, transportation hubs, manufacturing facilities, all legitimate targets. Colonel Santos studied the display. My teams can hit their military bases simultaneously, across 12 systems. They won't know what's happening until it's too late to respond. Ryan Walsh nodded. My intelligence network has identified key Cathari military leaders and their locations. We can eliminate their command structure in the first wave of attacks. Kate held up her hand. Negative on assassinations. We're not going to murder their leaders the way they murdered our diplomats. We're better than that. Instead, we capture them and put them on trial for war crimes. Commander Johnson activated his section of the display, showing Cathari's ship, designs and technical specifications. I've been analyzing their fleet composition. Their ships are powerful, but they have critical weaknesses. A few precisely placed charges in their shipyards will cripple their ability to build new vessels. Dr. White smiled as she showed her part of the plan. I've developed viruses specifically designed to target Cathari computer systems. Their entire communication network will go down in the first hour of our operation. They won't be able to coordinate their defense. Kate studied each section of the plan carefully. It was ambitious, requiring perfect timing and flawless execution across multiple star systems. But if it worked, the Cathari would be helpless within days. How long? Do we have to prepare? Asked General Parker. President Sullivan wants this operation to begin in 6 weeks. That gives us time to position our assets and make final preparations. Kate stood and walked around the table, looking each officer in the eye. I want everyone to understand something. What we are about to do will change the galaxy's perception of humanity forever. We will no longer be seen as the peaceful, reasonable species that prefers negotiation to violence. Colonel Santos nodded grimly. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. The galaxy's peaceful species seem to have very short lifespans when they encounter aggressive neighbors. The key to this operation is coordination, Kate continued. Every attack must happen simultaneously. If the Kethari realize what's happening before we're ready, they might be able to mount an effective defense. Ryan Walsh pulled up intelligence files on key Kethari installations. My agents have been gathering detailed information on security, procedures, guard rotations, and defensive capabilities. We know exactly how to hit each target for maximum effect. The planning session continued for 6 hours. Every detail was examined, every contingency considered. Kate assigned specific responsibilities to each commander and established communication. Protocols for the operation. What about the Galactic Council? Asked Dr. White. They're going to demand explanations when Kethari space starts falling apart. Kate smiled. Let them demand. We'll express concern about the mysterious technical failures plaguing Kethari infrastructure. Perhaps we'll offer to send humanitarian aid to help them deal with their difficulties. Over the following weeks, human ships began moving into position throughout the galaxy. The movements were subtle, disguised as routine patrol missions and training exercises. Special operations teams infiltrated Kethari worlds, using forged identities and carefully planned cover stories. Colonel Santos personally led the mission to place charges in the primary Kethari shipyard. Disguised as maintenance workers, her team spent 3 days installing explosive devices that would look like industrial accidents when they detonated. Commander Johnson's engineering teams had an even more ambitious task. They needed to access the central power grid that supplied energy to the Kethari capital world. Using stolen access codes provided by Ryan Walsh's spies, they installed devices that could overload the entire system on command. Dr. White's cyber warfare specialists were already inside Kethari computer networks, having spent months slowly infiltrating their systems. Her viruses were hidden in routine data packets, waiting for the signal to activate and begin their work of destruction. Kate herself took command of the main battle fleet, positioning her ships just outside the boundary of Kethari space. To any observer, it looked like a standard patrol formation. In reality, it was the striking force that would deliver the knockout blow to the Kethari home fleet. 3 days before the operation was scheduled to begin, Kate received an encrypted message from one of Walsh's deep cover agents on Kethari. Prime. War Prime ZH was planning to make another public speech about human weakness and Kethari superiority. He intended to announce new restrictions on human shipping and threaten additional violence against human diplomats. Kate read the message and smiled. Zeke Seming could not have been more perfect. His speech would provide the ideal justification for humanity's response. The galaxy would see that the Kethari leader was planning even more aggression against peaceful human civilians. She sent a priority message to President Sullivan, informing him of Zeke's planned speech. The president's response was immediate and brief. Proceed with Operation Reckoning. Show them what humans are really capable of. Kate looked out the viewport of her flagship at the stars of Kethari space. In 72 hours, many of those stars would be surrounded by the wreckage of Kethari ships and the ruins of Kethari military bases. The Dominion had spent 3 years learning about human patience and restraint. Now they were going to learn about human wrath. War Prime Zeke H stood before the assembled crowds on Kethari Prime, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights of the ceremonial platform. Thousands of his people filled the plaza below, their compound eyes reflecting his image. As he prepared to deliver another speech about Cathari superiority and human weakness. "Citizens of the Dominion," Zect H began, his voice amplified across the planet and broadcast to every Cathari world. "The humans continue to infest our galaxy like a disease. They spread to worlds that rightfully belong to older, more worthy species. They dare to claim equality with races that ruled the stars when their ancestors were crawling in mud." The crowd roared its approval, mandibles clicking in unison. Zect H raised his primary arms for silence before continuing. "Today, I announce new measures to contain this human plague. All human shipping through Dominion space will cease immediately. Any human vessel found in our territory will be destroyed without warning." Light years away, Admiral Kate Morrison watched the broadcast from the bridge of her flagship. She checked the chronometer on her command console. Zeke had chosen his timing perfectly, though he didn't know it yet. "Admiral, all units report ready," announced her communications officer, Lieutenant Dan Brooks. Kate nodded. "Signal all commands. Operation Reckoning is now active. Execute immediately." Across 12 star systems, the coordinated attack began with surgical precision. Colonel Maria Santos and her Special Forces team struck first, hitting Cathari military bases with explosive charges that had been placed weeks earlier. Aliens had no warning as their primary weapons depots disappeared in brilliant fireballs. On the industrial world of Kethver 7, Commander Steve Johnson's carefully placed devices activated in the main shipyard. What appeared to be catastrophic industrial accidents destroyed the massive construction facilities where the Cathari built their warships. Molten metal and twisted wreckage rained down on the surrounding area as decades of shipbuilding capability vanished in minutes. Dr. Carol White's cyber attack launched simultaneously, her viruses spreading through Cathari computer networks wildfire. Communication systems crashed across the Dominion as the aliens found themselves unable to coordinate their response. Military commanders could not contact their subordinates. Ships could not communicate with their bases, and the central government lost contact with its outer colonies. Intelligence Director Ryan Walsh's agents struck at key infrastructure targets. Power plants suffered mysterious overloads, transportation networks ground to a halt, and manufacturing facilities shut down as their control systems failed. Cathari Industrial Base began collapsing even as their leaders tried to understand what was happening. War Prime Zeke H was still delivering his speech when the first reports reached his advisors. A aide approached the platform and whispered urgently in the War Prime's ear. Zeke's compound eyes widened as he processed the information. "Citizens, I must interrupt this ceremony to address urgent military matters," Zeke H announced, his voice betraying confusion and growing alarm. "It appears that several of our outer colonies are experiencing technical difficulties." Kate Morrison smiled coldly as she watched the Cathari leader struggle to maintain composure. The real show was just beginning. "All units, commence Phase 2, Kate ordered. The second wave of attacks targeted the Cathari fleet directly. Human warships that had been positioned just outside Dominion space suddenly appeared throughout Cathari territory, emerging from hyperspace at carefully calculated points. Cathari found themselves facing superior firepower exactly where they least expected it. Captain Robert Lee commanded the attack on the Cathari Fourth Fleet, which was stationed near their primary military academy. His battle group emerged from hyperspace directly above the enemy formation, catching them completely unprepared. The human ships were equipped with new plasma lance weapons that cut through Cathari armor like paper. "Target their command ship first," Lee ordered. "Once their admiral is gone, the rest will be easier to handle." The battle was brief and decisive. The Cathari ships were powerful, but they had been designed to fight enemies who announced their intentions and approached from predictable directions. Human tactics were based on speed, surprise, and overwhelming firepower applied at the enemy's weakest points. Similar engagements took place throughout Cathari space. Admiral Patricia Holmes destroyed an entire patrol squadron near the border worlds. Commander David Garcia's task force eliminated the shipyard defense fleet before it could respond to the industrial attacks. Captain Jennifer Walsh caught a Cathari battle group refueling at a supply station and annihilated them while their shields were down. The most important engagement was taking place in the home system, where Kate Morrison herself led the assault on the Cathari Grand Fleet. This was the Dominion's most powerful military force, consisting of over 200 warships, including their newest and most advanced vessels. Kate had spent months studying Cathari fleet tactics and had identified their critical weakness. The aliens relied on centralized command and control, with all tactical decisions flowing through their fleet admiral. If that command structure could be disrupted, the entire formation would become vulnerable. "Target the flagship with everything we have," Kate ordered. "Ignore the other ships until their command vessel is destroyed." The U's Defiance and her escorts concentrated their fire on the massive Cathari dreadnought that served as the fleet flagship. The alien ship was heavily armored and defended by multiple shield generators, but human weapons had been specifically designed to penetrate Cathari defenses. The flagship lasted 18 minutes under concentrated fire before its hull began to crack. Secondary explosions rippled along its length as internal systems failed. When the command bridge took a direct hit from Kate's plasma lances, the great ship began to list to one side, its engines failing. "Fleet Admiral Vector is dead," reported the intelligence officer, monitoring Cathari communications. "The remaining ships are requesting orders, but getting no response." Kate watched as confusion spread through the enemy formation. Without their commander, the Cathari captains began making individual decisions, breaking formation and trying to retreat. This made them easy targets for the coordinated human attack. "All ships engage targets of opportunity," Kate ordered. "Don't let any of them escape to regroup." The battle for the home system lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Cathari Grand Fleet existed only as debris floating in space. Kate had lost 3 ships and suffered minimal casualties, while the enemy had been completely destroyed. Throughout Dominion space, similar scenes were playing out. The Cathari military was being systematically dismantled by an enemy they had underestimated. Their communications were down, their fleets were scattered or destroyed, and their industrial capacity was in ruins. On Cathari Prime, War Prime Zeke H stood in his command center, watching displays that showed nothing but failure and destruction. His advisors rushed around frantically, trying to establish contact with surviving military units and assess the extent of the disaster. "War Prime were receiving a transmission from the human fleet," announced his communications officer. Zeke straightened, his mandibles clicking with rage. "Put it through." Admiral Kate Morrison's image appeared on the main screen, her expression calm and professional. Behind her, the bridge of the UES Defiance showed the controlled activity of a successful military operation. "War Prime Zeke," Kate said formally. "I am Admiral Kate Morrison of the Terran Defense Fleet. You are hereby ordered to surrender all remaining Cathari military forces and submit to occupation by human forces." Zeke's compound eyes blazed with fury. "You dare make demands of the Cathari Dominion? We have ruled this sector for 2,000 years. Kate's expression didn't change. "You had 2,000 years of power, and you used it to murder human diplomats. That time is over. You have won. Hour to transmit your unconditional surrender, or we will complete the destruction of your civilization." The transmission ended, leaving Zeke H staring at a blank screen. Around him, his advisors waited for orders that would never come. The Cathari Dominion had fallen in a single day, brought down by the species they had dismissed as weak and civilized. In the silence of the command center, H finally understood the truth. The humans had never been weak. They had simply been patient. War Prime H sat in the detention cell aboard the UES Defiance, his compound eyes staring at the metal walls that surrounded him. The proud leader of the Kethari Dominion had been reduced to a prisoner in less than 24 hours. His once mighty fleet was nothing but floating debris. His worlds were under human occupation, and his people were learning what it meant to be conquered. Admiral Kate Morrison walked through the corridors of her flagship, reviewing reports from across former Kethari space. The operation had been more successful than even her most optimistic projections. Human forces now controlled every major Kethari world, and the few remaining enemy ships had either surrendered or been destroyed. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth," announced Lieutenant Dan Brooks from the communications station. Kate nodded and made her way to her ready room. The holographic display activated, showing President Sullivan's face. The president looked satisfied, but also concerned about the implications of what humanity had just accomplished. "Congratulations, Admiral. Your operation exceeded all expectations. The Kethari Dominion has ceased to exist as a military power, and galactic reaction has been interesting." Kate raised an eyebrow. "Interesting how, Mr. President?" "Every major species in the galaxy is suddenly very interested in maintaining good relations with Earth. The hegemony has offered us preferential trading agreements. The collective wants to discuss defense treaties. Even the synthesis is asking about cultural exchange programs." Kate understood the implications immediately. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations were offering friendship because they were afraid of humanity's military capabilities. The species that had once seen humans as junior partners now viewed them as potential threats. "There's something else, Admiral, something that will interest you personally." Sullivan's expression became more serious. "We're sending someone to meet with you. Someone who has been working behind the scenes for the past 3 years." Kate frowned. "Who?" "You'll see. The transport will arrive at your position in 6 hours." The transmission ended, leaving Kate puzzled about the president's cryptic message. She returned to the bridge and continued coordinating the occupation of Kethari space. Human ships were establishing orbital control over major worlds, while ground forces secured key installations. General Lisa Parker reported from the surface of Kethari Prime. "The capital is secure, Admiral. We've arrested the surviving members of the War Council and secured all government facilities. The population is cooperating fully." Colonel Maria Santos checked in from the outer colonies. "All military installations are under our control. We've captured significant stockpiles of weapons and equipment. The Kethari won't be able to mount any kind of resistance." 6 hours later, Kate stood in the shuttle bay, watching as a small transport ship docked with the Defiance. The hatch opened and a familiar figure stepped out, causing Kate's heart to skip a beat. Elena Martinez walked across the deck, very much alive and wearing the uniform of a Terran intelligence operative. She looked older than Kate remembered, with new lines around her eyes and gray streaks in her dark hair. But her smile was the same smile that Kate had missed for 3 years. "Hello, Kate," Elena said quietly. "I'm sorry it took so long to come home." Kate stared at her sister, emotions flooding through her that she had kept buried for years. "Elena? But we saw the shuttle explode. We saw the investigation reports. The explosion was real, but I wasn't on the shuttle when it happened. Intelligence pulled me off at the last moment and replaced me with a duplicate. We needed the Kethari to believe they had succeeded in killing me." Kate stepped forward and embraced her sister, feeling tears she hadn't allowed herself to shed for 3 years. "Why? Why let everyone think you were dead?" Elena pulled back and looked into Kate's eyes. "Because we needed to understand what the Kethari were really planning. My death was supposed to be just the beginning. They intended to eliminate every human diplomat, every human leader who stood in their way. They walked together to Kate's ready room, where Elena explained what had really happened 3 years ago. Intelligence Director Ryan Walsh had suspected that the Cathari were planning to assassinate Elena during her return journey. Instead of stopping the attack, they had decided to use it as an opportunity to place a deep cover agent inside Cathari society. I spent 3 years living among them, learning their language, their customs, their military secrets. I was just another refugee from the destroyed shuttle, grateful to the Cathari for rescuing me from the wreckage. Elena activated a holographic display showing detailed intelligence files. The Cathari were planning a full-scale invasion of human space. They intended to conquer Earth, enslave our colonies, and wipe out human civilization. Alex Chun's murder was meant to be the signal for their attack. Kate studied the files, seeing battle plans, troop movements, and weapon specifications. They were going to attack us anyway. Within 6 months. Your operation didn't just destroy their current military. Kate, it prevented a war that would have killed millions of humans. Elena smiled grimly. The Cathari learned too late that humans are very good at long-term planning. A chime from the communication system interrupted them. Admiral, War Prime ZH is requesting to speak with you, announced Lieutenant Brooks. Kate and Elena exchanged glances. Let's go have a conversation with our prisoner. They made their way to the detention level, where Zekth waited in his cell. The former Cathari leader looked up as they approached, his compound eyes focusing on Elena with obvious shock. The dead human diplomat, ZH said in his heavily accented English. I watched your shuttle explode with my own eyes. Elena stepped closer to the force field that separated them. You watched a shuttle explode, but I was already gone. While you were celebrating my death, I was learning everything about your people, your military, your plans for genocide. Zeke's mandibles clicked with rage. You deceived us. You used our mercy against us. Mercy? Elena's voice was cold. You murdered Dr. Chun with poison. You were planning to invade Earth and enslave our colonies. You call that mercy? Kate stepped forward. The Cathari Dominion is finished, ZH. Your worlds are under human control. Your fleet is destroyed. And your people are learning what it means to live under occupation. What will you do with us? ZH asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena answered before Kate could speak. We will treat you better than you would have treated us. Cathari civilians will be protected and given full rights under human law. Your worlds will be integrated into the Terran Federation as equal member planets. Zekth stared at her in disbelief. You would make us citizens? After what we did? We're not you, Kate said simply. We don't believe in genocide or slavery. We believe in justice and second chances. 2 days later, Kate stood before the assembled Galactic Council, representing Earth at the emergency session called to discuss the Cathari situation. The great chamber was filled with delegates from dozens of species, all of them looking at her with newfound respect and carefully hidden fear. Chancellor Morden of the Hegemony spoke first. The destruction of the Cathari Dominion has shocked the entire galaxy. We must address the implications of such overwhelming military action. Kate stood and addressed the assembly. The Cathari Dominion was planning to invade human space and commit genocide against our people. We have provided detailed evidence of their plans to the Council. Our response was proportionate to the threat they posed. Ambassador Kyler of... The synthesis raised a tentative hand. What are humanity's intentions regarding the former Cathari territories? Elena, now serving as Earth's new ambassador to the Council, answered. The Cathari worlds will be integrated into the Terran Federation as full member planets. Their people will enjoy the same rights and protections as any human citizen. We are not conquerors. We are liberators. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had just demonstrated military capabilities that could destroy any civilization in the galaxy, but they were choosing to treat their defeated enemies with mercy and respect. Chancellor Morden spoke again, his voice carefully neutral. The hegemony wishes to reaffirm our friendship with Earth and our commitment to peaceful cooperation. Similar statements came from every major power in the galaxy. The message was clear. Nobody wanted to be the next species to test human patience. Later, Kate and Elena stood together on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching the stars of what had once been Cathari space. Human ships patrolled the systems, protecting the very people who had once planned to destroy Earth. Do you think they've learned their lesson? Elena asked. Kate smiled. The galaxy has learned that humans prefer peace, but we're not weak. We're reasonable, but we're not victims. And most importantly, we remember our friends and our enemies. Elena nodded. They killed me once, and Earth let it slide. They tried to kill me again, and Earth showed them what happens when you push humans too far. The second time wasn't quite the same as the first, Kate agreed. This time we pushed back. In the months that followed, the galaxy settled into a new balance of power. Human colonies expanded rapidly as other species offered territory and resources to maintain good relations.